Och då säger jag hej och välkomna till Vårdklockans kyrka och till seminariet Nonviolence and International Law, Tools for Just Peace in the Conflict on Palestine. Jag heter Ulf Bjereld. Jag är ordförande för Socialdemokrater för tro och solidaritet, som är en självständig rörelse inom socialdemokratin och som också är kända under vårt tidigare namn, Sveriges kristna socialdemokrater, Broderskapsrörelsen. Och vi har under många år varit en drivande kraft inom Socialdemokraterna i Palestinafrågan och i arbetet för att åstadkomma en tvåstatslösning. Och likt FN så uppfattar vi den israeliska bosättningspolitiken som olaglig och vi ser gärna sanktioner mot varor som har producerats på dessa bosättningar. Det är våra ingångsvärden i den här konflikten. Och jag är glad och stolt över att vi har lyckats samla en så intressant panel som vi har gjort här idag. Seminariet arrangeras alltså av Socialdemokrater för tro och solidaritet och även av Kairos Palestine Sweden, som också finns representerat i panelen. Innan jag glömmer det ska jag säga vad jag har lovat, att ni ska hålla utkik efter nödutgångarna. Den ena finns här strax bakom mig. Vi har en nere i hörnet där, också naturligtvis rakt ut genom huvuddörrarna heller. Ifall vi skulle behöva utrymme under oklara former. Vi ska väl hoppas att så inte ska bli fallet. Och med de här orden så lämnar jag över till Karin Hammar som representerar Kairos Palestine in Sweden och som också ska introducera panelen. Varsågod.
Thank you very much, Ulf. Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. My name is Karin and I'm also a priest in Church of Sweden. And in all seminars affiliated to Church of Sweden, we also say a word about those who are not present in Almedalen due to fear for persecution. And for all who are persecuted in the world, we take a stand, and for all who are siding in solidarity with them. No weapons are allowed in a church, and those who have weapons in a church, they break the church law. And it's very important to be here together in peace and to have a spirit of dialogue and in solidarity with all who are victims. Let me have the honor to introduce to you the State Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Annika Söder, who is a long-standing diplomat within the Swedish Foreign Ministry and who has been able to be with us at least for a couple of minutes. Thank you for that. We also say welcome to Mr. Nibal Zuluf, who is the leader of the Joint Advocacy Initiative in Palestine and who plants olive trees as a sign of hope. And Nidal is also an author, original author of the Kairos Palestine document number 1 from 2009, The Cry from Palestinian Christians, and he's also an author of Palestine Kairos document 2, which is a Swedish translation is available at the back of the church, which was published on the 12th of June 2017 by the Christian Civil Society in Palestine. And we also say warmly welcome to Mr. Gideon Levy, who is a journalist and a long-standing advocate for Palestinian truth and for Israeli truth, and for what it is to live in a situation like you are in a dominant society marked by occupation and many other aspects. We say welcome to you, and we say also welcome to Mr. Pierre Schori, who is ex-ambassador to the UN for the Swedish government, and is also the chair of the Olof Palme Foundation, in whose spirit we also want to commit this seminar. Welcome. Now the word is yours.
Thank you. I have the honor of being the moderator today. And before I give the first word to Annika Söder, I'd like to say that we have to finish by 3:20, so the tight schedule. It is true, I was ambassador at the UN, and in 2003, there was the yearly Israeli Day Parade in New York. And there was a lot of people coming. And I was standing watching it. I did not have an Israeli flag in my hand as so many others. So actually the parade stopped in front of me And they said, don't you support Israel? And I said, which Israel? And I think that is among the hard facts and questions that we have to pose the panel today. Because 15 years later, today in 2017, we have 50 years of occupation, and next year it will be 70 years since Al-Nakba, where 700,000 Palestinians had to leave their homes. And today we have 400,000 settlers, Israeli settlers on Palestinian territory, and 200,000 in East Jerusalem. And every 10th Israeli Jew is now living on occupied or disputed territory, Palestinian territory. So the hard questions: is Israel really a democracy with this? Yes, it's a full-fledged democracy for Israelis, Jewish Israelis. Half a democracy, I would say, for those who are Palestinian Arabs in Israel, and no democracy in the occupied territories, where we instead see apartheid coming. And it is about the occupation. Already Olof Palme said that many, many years ago. This is the core issue. So it's the occupation, stupid. What could we do? These are my final question. I would like to perhaps hear from the panel. What can we do from the outside? We have courageous citizens, journalists like Gideon and other organizations, B'Tselem, Al-Haq, and of course the Palestinians with peaceful means resisting the occupation and wanting to have a different situation. What can we do? Shall we support, of course, like the Swedish government does, by recognizing Palestine? Yes. By supporting independent human rights organizations? Yes. But what shall we do about the boycott system, which exists in different forms? For my sake, I would say we are for fair trade everywhere else. You can see the sign of fair trade everywhere. And fair trade cannot live under occupation. So that is some of the questions maybe the panel will raise. And may I ask Annika Söder then to begin, please.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to see both the Israeli and the Palestinian ambassador here. It will, of course, be a challenge for all of us to give justice to the very important title of this seminar, bearing in mind your presence and bearing in mind the very knowledgeable panel. But the topics are very, very important, and I hope that we will be able together to bring additional knowledge also to the audience. I would like to say two things before starting, referring a little bit to what Karin said, that something that I believe unifies all of us here is the importance and necessity to stand up against Nazism and xenophobia. And I feel a little ashamed that we have Nazis here at Almedalen this year, and in particular, in view of representatives of Palestine and Israel here today. Also, I believe that since this is also a battleground, so to say, Almedalen, for the political parties in Sweden, that a vote for the Sweden Democrats would actually not at all contribute to the common goals that we all have when it comes to humanity and also when it comes to solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Many are looking at Sweden since we recognized Palestine. That's now soon 3 years ago. What is very often forgotten is our engagement to find a fair solution since 1948 with Folke Bernadotte, and how we've been working to find a just solution all through the years with many, many politicians and diplomats engaged, and that we've been doing this based on international law, human rights, and to find a peaceful solution where everyone living in that part of the world would be able to have exchange, live peacefully, trade, enjoy culture, and so on. This motive may sound a little naive today, since the world is getting more and more difficult, including the MENA region, but this will still have to be our goal. And the recognition as such was based on this, and it was also there to see to it that there was hope among young people on both sides, and also with the idea that the Palestinian side was somewhat weaker, but had rights in accordance with international law to be recognized. So we were the 135th country to recognize Palestine. This is, of course, also a responsibility, and we are in very close dialogue with Palestine on what the Palestinian side can do to overcome the injustices and see to it that we find this peaceful solution. The two-state solution is the only way forward, and for two sovereign states, Israel and Palestine, to live together side by side in peace and security, and true security will only come from peace, not from building walls, and that is, of course, an immensely important problem, also bearing in mind the human rights aspect. Let me also mention that there is a toll on the Palestinian side with the occupation also leading to problems, I would say, related sometimes to how news media can work, related also to how young people can actually claim their rights, and I really hope that we will see improvement on that side. The region with most problems is, of course, Gaza. Some of you may know that Sweden has development aid in Gaza, but our diplomats are not allowed to enter. And this is, of course, an important problem where we're trying to follow our money through friends and colleagues from other countries and international organizations. But coming back to the situation as such, the electricity level is now down at 4 hours per day. And this is affecting not least water, including drinking water, and a lot of water that should be going through sewage is actually now going out in the Mediterranean without that. And I believe that both Ramallah and not least the Israeli government can do a lot to improve this very pertinent situation. There is a discussion on the situation between Israel and Palestine also in the Security Council, where Sweden is a member, a non-permanent member this year and next year. As you will recall, a resolution was adopted immediately before the end of the Obama administration. And we are now working together with some other members of the Council to see to it that that resolution can be implemented. Unfortunately, there are several Security Council resolutions that have not been implemented, and this, I would say, is quite disturbing, since the implementation of international law is very important for all of us. It's a matter of principle, and it's a matter for all countries, in particular small countries, that will have to use international law as a line of defense. I would also believe that the Arab group is a very important group of countries. Unfortunately, as we all know, they are now split. And it remains to be seen if the Arab Peace Initiative, which was a very good one, if it can actually be used. It also remains to be seen if the new American administration and their ambitions to forge peace between the two nations, if those ambitions will be able to be fulfilled, bearing in mind the very messy situation in the region. I believe that if we can take steps forward when it comes to the conflict between Israel and Palestine, we will also find ways forward when it comes to the other conflicts in the MENA region, because this is something that the situation for the Palestinians is something that is abused by some factions of Daesh in order to recruit people, because they feel this is an injustice, and that cannot, of course, be. Finally, let me say something about BDS, since this is a theme and I will soon have to run away to another seminar. BDS is a popular movement. It's not for governments to to decide, and we wouldn't take any decisions related to the BDS. What we believe is that it is important to implement the rules that we have within the European Union, where goods from settlements should not be allowed to be labeled as if they were acceptable. So that is our role as a government to implement that. It's not our role to work in one or the other direction when it comes to BDS as a popular movement.
Thank you very much, and I will now give the floor to Nibal. You may say what you want, and you may also ask questions if you want to the State Secretary.
Thank you very much. I don't know if the two-state solution is viable anymore. I mean, the reality on the ground is something quite different. I mean, we only, Palestinians have a bit of control on 40% of the West Bank, and the other 60% are fully under the Israeli army control and the settlers' control. With the Israeli policy of expanding with settlements, having more apartments built, I mean, this doesn't bring any hope for a two-state solution. But still, this could be implemented, could be enforced if there is a respect of international law. But Israel does not respect international law. There are more than 120 different UN resolutions that Israel gave a damn to, didn't give a damn to. I mean, when we developed Kairos Palestine 1, it was out of hope. Now, Kairos Palestine 2 was developed out of despair. The situation is very bad. It's very urgent. People need to act. Occupation means, for me personally, to be imprisoned because I made a book fair at my university. I was imprisoned for this reason. I was denied personally having a driving license for 13 years because they wanted me to have a certificate of good conduct from the Israeli security. The same applied to a telephone landline that I applied for. I was denied accessing telephone line. My water is controlled by the state of Israel. Every 10 days I have water to fill the tanks in the roof of my building. And if I need to have a shower, I will ask the kids to go to see if there is enough water for showering or not. Controlling every aspect of my life. My mobile is controlled by the state of Israel. My electromagnetic waves are controlled by Israel. My media is controlled by Israel. My power is controlled by Israel. Everything in my life is controlled by Israel. A country that does not respect international law. The two-state solution is beautiful, but I think it will not work. With the current Israeli policy, with the current Israeli very right government, this will not work. Without exerting very much pressure on the state of Israel, this will never work. And I would call the Swedish government and all the governments worldwide to be held accountable to their own obligations under Geneva Conventions, mainly the 4th Geneva Convention, because they are signatories. Israel violates international humanitarian law in the occupied territories, with building settlements, with demolishing houses, with the collective punishment, with everything it does to the Palestinian people in the occupied territory. Where is your voice in the European Union? You talk beautifully about the impact of the Israeli measures on peace, but you do nothing. You act nothing. You do nothing so as to stop Israel from violating international law. In Kairos, we made it clear that we asked the world community, mainly with much focus on the churches and the ecumenical bodies, that a prophetic, costly solidarity is needed. You have to pay for your solidarity with the oppressed and the poor, the marginalized, the dispossessed people, the daily internally displaced people, because of the Israeli practices. When they come to uproot your olive trees, when they come to demolish your house because it's without a building license, and they will never give you a license to build a house. They will never give you a license to build a house, but once you try to build for different reasons, they will come and bulldoze that, will destroy that. You are to be held accountable in Sweden and all the European countries. We made it clear that we need this costly solidarity. You have to pay for your solidarity. We know that you are under the Israeli pressure. But if you behave like a good friend of Israel, Israel should be asked by you to behave in accordance with international law. That's why we believe in Kairos, and we believe in, I would say, all the Palestinian Christian organizations that I do represent here now, that BDS is the solution with all its forms. And government should be there. I mean, divestment and military embargo should be there. For a country that violates international law that we all talk about, I think it should be placed under all the type of pressure possible. And I would say that this is a loving way of resistance. It's non-violent, legal, peaceful, and a loving way, because we want also to liberate the oppressors. We want them to be liberated. Without this costly solidarity, without the BDS as a functional tool campaign that was supported by the entire Palestinian civil society, I think we'll be waiting for another 10 years and another decade and another maybe half a century and then another century, and then we would come to say, sorry, we should have adopted another strategy. People are suffering, and every day they are suffering, and the answer is with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Gideon Levy, would you like to take the floor, please?
I'm highly privileged to be here today, first of all, because of the presence of Annika and Karin and Pierre and you. I'm privileged because of the presence of the Palestinian and Israeli ambassador here. I highly appreciate the fact that you are here listening to dissidents from your country and even if not supporting them, listening to them. I'm highly privileged to be in Sweden because for people like me, Sweden, Annika, that's the only sentence I want you to listen. Sweden is a genuine friend of Israel. We need friends like you because you are a friend of morality and friend of conscience. Now you can go. And unlikely the image that Sweden has in Israel, for me, friendship means not supplying arms and not voting automatically in favor of the occupation and not putting a veto every time there is a resolution against the occupation. Friendship for me is criticizing when it's needed and showing the way when it's needed. That's friendship. When you have a friend or a relative who is drug addicted, you may supply him with money and he will buy more drugs and he will be very grateful to you. You may also try to force him to go to a rehabilitation center. He will hate you, but this will be really taking care of him. This will be real love and care. And showing Israel the wrong way it goes is not anti-Semitism in most of the cases. It's not hatred of Israel. It's in many cases, not in all of them. It's really caring about justice and about Israel. And we need friends like you. And I really suggest you, stand up. Even if you are labeled as anti-Semites every time that you dare to criticize Israel, ignore it. Because most of you, not all of you, most of you are not anti-Semites. Most of you are people of conscience. And you shouldn't shut up because some kind of propaganda machinery is labeling you in a cynical way as anti-Semites only to shut you down. We need you because the situation is really desperate in Israel and in Palestine. Many times I'm being criticized that I draw the picture as if it is black and white, and I oversimplify the picture. Friends, the situation is black and white. There is the occupier and there is the occupied one. And anyone who says that this is more complex than this wants just to bias the truth. And the truth is that the occupier is the occupier and the occupied one is the occupied one. And there is no doubt where is black and where is white. Not for people of conscience. 50 years of occupation, which we celebrate now, must also bring us to the conclusion that nothing about the occupation is temporary. Forget about the claim that the occupation is temporary. It's only the first 50 years of the occupation. It's not 50 years of the occupation. And if it is not temporary, we should draw the conclusions. The occupation is there to stay. In the history of Israel, there was not one single prime minister who really meant to put an end to the occupation. There were some more moderate ones, some more courageous ones, but none of them meant to put an end to the occupation. How do I know? Because none of them stopped building settlements, and anyone who builds settlements does not mean to put an end to the occupation. That's a very clear formula. Israel will continue with the occupation as long as Israel can continue with the occupation, and Israel can continue with the occupation because the world let Israel continue with the occupation. More than this, Israel gains so much more if it continues the occupation, rather if it puts an end to it. And the only way to break through is changing this balance, is making the deal for Israel of continuing the occupation a less good deal, is convincing Israel that going for putting an end to the occupation is the better deal. We are not there. We are not there. We are far off it. Any one of you who expects change from within Israel, which I would dream about, please forget about it. There will not be a change from within Israel. Life in Israel is far too good. Brainwash system is far too efficient. And why would Israelis bother about ending the occupation? Who cares about the occupation? The occupation is not at all in the Israeli discourse. Nobody talks about the elephant, and the elephant is in the room. Look at the campaigns to the elections. People who come from abroad don't believe it. How the major issue, the most crucial issue for the future of Israel, the most crucial issue for the nature of Israel is hardly discussed. And now we have the new trend, is denied. The current government is now leading a process in which Israel is denying that there is an occupation at all. We are going back now 50 years backwards. No occupation, liberation. So anyone who thinks that this might change from within the Israeli society does not know the Israeli society. Israelis know so little about the occupation. Israelis want to know so little about the occupation, and they care so little about the occupation. Israeli media helps them to know so little. No moral doubts, almost nothing. Those who fight the occupation are delegitimized in Israel, systematically, mainly under this government. And a change cannot come in those circumstances. So the only change can come from the outside. That's the truth. Now the Israeli propaganda will claim this is not democratic. Democracy is if the Israelis will decide. Excuse me? Democracy? Israel will decide, Israelis will decide about the fate of 4.5 million people? This is democracy? I'm old enough to know that nobody is half pregnant. Either you are pregnant or you are not pregnant. And either you are a democracy or you are not. And when in your backyard, in your dark backyard, there's a reality of a brutal tyranny, one of the most brutal tyrannies in the world, and I stand behind this. One of the most brutal tyrannies in the world is taking place in the backyard of Israel under the cover of the liberal democracy which it is for its Jewish citizens. When this reality is a permanent reality and not a temporary one, and when this reality has no signs that it's going to end, no one can claim that Israel is a democracy. Because you can't be half democratic. And you can't be a democracy when those atrocities and crimes on a daily basis are taking place. You know about the reality in the occupied territories. I don't have to elaborate here. But the crimes are on a daily basis. The basic crime of the occupation are the daily crimes. From the siege on Gaza to the arrest last week of the second arrest of a member of parliament, a Palestinian member of parliament, who was arrested again only because of her political activity. That's reality. How do we bring an end to it and bring an end to my too long lecture? the way is long. Unlikely, Annika, I lost hope in the two-state solution. Anyone who will prove me that the two-state solution is still viable, I'll be more than happy to be convinced. But if someone saying will be ever evacuated, does not know where he lives. And if anyone thinks that there will be a viable Palestinian state without the evacuation of the settlers, also doesn't know where he lives. And we have to change the discourse, because continuing to talk about the solutions of yesterday will lead us to nowhere. We say two states, and we know there will never be two states, because Israel never wanted two states and will never go for the two-state solution unless there will be no other choice for it. And if this is the case, we should start to talk a new language, the language of equal rights for everything, for everyone. It's a long way to go. It seems now like the unthinkable, but it was unthinkable in South Africa, and it happened, and it might also become thinkable also in Israel. Many times you are the country of trees, of beautiful trees, of strong trees. Many times you see a strong, big tree all of a sudden falling on the street. You don't understand. Only yesterday it looked so strong. And then you look inside the tree and you see it's totally rotten. And what is more rotten than the Israeli occupation? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anna Karin, Hammar, please.
Thank you very much. I'm representing civil society and Christian civil society especially, and Kairos, Palestine, Sweden, but of course also as a priest in Church of Sweden, I'm also representing Church of Sweden. And I say that we learn from nonviolence and from Gandhi and from all those great champions who have used violence against nonviolence against oppression. And nonviolence has two hands. With one hand, you resist oppression. And that is for us as civil society, BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions. It's the best way to undo the oppression, because it's not violence, it's resistance, but it's not violence and it's not empty words. But there is another hand in nonviolence, and that's the welcoming hand. The welcoming hand of building the future. And I would urge everyone here who hasn't read the report from the study at Lund University about the Parallel States project to really study it carefully. The Parallel States project, where Mattias Mossberg has been involved, who worked for a long time with the Swedish government and Swedish diplomacy, and the University of Lund, and in cooperation with the United States. And I think that it's a welcoming tool for seeing an alternative future where there can be two states in the same land, respecting one another. You all know that Martin Buber had that idea and that dream, but I would say that they have taken his dream and taken it into international politics in a way that is realistic and is not only a utopia long in the future, but is something recognizable and imaginable. So that's the welcoming to build a future that is possible for both peoples. But there is no love which does not resist oppression. And what is happening today is that Israel is oppressing the entire Palestinian people. And it's by occupation, Gideon and Nibal, but it's also by apartheid. Like in apartheid, which is documented in two important studies. The one that was published at the United Nations for one day only, and then it was taken away from the website. But still, it's a UN report. And it follows the line that Israeli apartheid regime is separating the Palestinian people in 4 categories that are not able to fulfill their right to self-determination through that separation, or hafrada. And there is also another line on international law when it comes to apartheid, and it has to do with being in equivalence with South Africa and the apartheid in South Africa. The Convention on Apartheid tells about that there must be a resemblance between the situation in South Africa and the situation in Israel, Palestine. And I would say that there exists a very good analysis by a collaborator of the Christian Institute in South Africa with Bios Node, a Methodist called Brian Brown, who has made this comparison between the victimhood of both South Africa and Israel, but also about the dispossession of another people of their land and their rights and their dignity. So I would say that it's important in the analysis to recognize that it's 50 years of occupation, but it's also a situation of apartheid, which is a crime against humanity and should be legally dealt with.
We know that Mr. Trump says will solve the problem, as he has said. It's an easy problem, and he sent his son-in-law, Mr. Kushner, to see both the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. What do you share Trump's optimism, and what was the outcome of Mr. Kushner's visit to the region? Can we begin with you?
I don't think that we need to expect any outcomes of such American intervention unless this is something imposed by force. Maybe by financial force, whatever type of force, and this will not be peace. This will not be a political settlement. A political settlement should be based on the international law, on the respect of the national, political, social, economic rights of the Palestinian people. So if anything comes under pressure, this will not be a lasting peace if we agree on the word of peace. So I don't have any faith in the American administration as it was forever.
Thank you. Gideon.
I mean, I appreciate your sense of humor, Pierre. I don't think you really meant it. Nobody can take Donald Trump's policy seriously. Nobody can expect him to be in favor of things that he doesn't even know what they mean, like human rights, like justice, like morality, like even peace. He's trying with a team which we have to say the truth. When the team includes names like Kushner, Friedman, and Greenblatt, and only they. One of them is the chairman of the Friends of the Beth El settlement, the Ambassador Friedman. I mean, what can you expect when this is the peace team of the United States and this is the President of the United States? And still, I want to argue with you, Nibal, my friend, if there would have been an American president who would really like to put an end to the occupation, he could have done it within months, because Israel was never so depending on the United States. The problem is that never ever, including Barack Obama, was there a president who really wanted to put an end to the occupation. And as long as this is the situation, you can't expect anything except of, those rituals, those lip services, those empty peace conferences, peace plans, which all repeat themselves one after the other, and never meant to do something.
Thank you. I can take this one. Yes, Mr. Trump, or the 45th president, as the Black Lives Matter prefer to call him. I think that what happens at that level is not the leading level today. I think the leading level today is the grassroots and the civil society around the world. And as Kairos members, Nibal and me, we also have a very good experience from a growing global movement of BDS and of Kairos groups around the world that think that boycott, sanctions, and divestment is a very important way forward. I know that in Church of Sweden, we only go to the B or the D, but not to sanctions, but that we boycott settlement goods and all that sustains occupation. That is also very important to understand. It's not just saying no to settlement goods or marking settlement goods, but it's also to undo support to what keeps the occupation alive and the settlements alive. And for example, the Norwegian pension funds have made very important inroads into that by divesting all the Israeli banks that economizes the settlements. So I think we have a growing trust in the global civil society that will be the ones that lead the change. And of course, Trump can maybe do things that Obama couldn't do. But I don't think change will come until Gideon's plea is heard, that there will be so much international pressure that Israel finds it's a good deal to undo the occupation and undo the apartheid and to look forward to live peacefully like lamb and lion together. And maybe lamb and lion are on both sides and within us all. But to find peace, we must respect our common humanity and our own humanity. And that can only be done in a system that undoes occupation, in a system that undoes apartheid, and that cultivates peace for everyone.
We heard Annika Söder say that BDS is a popular movement and has not to do with the governments, and she leaves that to the citizens, so to say, the individual. But she said, we want to implement the EU rules against imports from or products from occupied territory. Is that working according to you? Is it implemented in Sweden, Annika?
Well, it's of course Israel that should mark their goods and so on, and refuses so far to do that. But that is very important to do that. But I would say why it's not enough, because the settlement goods is just one part of what is sustaining occupation and apartheid. And it's very important that we realize all the pillars of injustices and try to undo them in a non-violent way, with the hand of resistance, but welcoming the parallel states project, the parallel states possibility, the possibility to live together in peace and mutual recognition of each other's humanity. And I think that is very, very, very important. And of course, Israeli school books could become better, Arabic, Palestinian school books could become better, violence could diminish on each side, but there is a fundamental system of oppression, which is occupation, which is apartheid, which is needed to dismantle and to make the benefits of peace and a just peace much greater than the present situation.
Thank you. Yes.
I think the European decision on this was to talk about labeling settlement products. So maybe we need to wait for another 10 years to decide to boycott settlement products, then another half a century to decide to do. And we are dying people. We are suffering people. We are full of pain. We need action now. Don't talk about this shallow strategies of labeling and then boycotting, and then we need an end to this oppression soon as possible. And all the world community are to be held accountable to their international obligations. You are all complicit if you don't do action, to take action to end this oppression. We are waiting for you. We still have some faith on you, so don't let us down. Thank you.
May I ask you one question, Nidal? You said you cannot use water as much as you would like. How come? I mean, what is the reason given to you for this?
I mean, water is by 85% controlled by the State of Israel. Most of the water that is taken by the State of Israel are in Bethlehem area, where I live personally. And it's fully controlled by the State of Israel, and they give us our share. And what we receive, according to the World Health Organization, is something like 70 liters per day per person. And Israeli settlers get 250. An Israeli citizen gets 350 liters per person per day. And most of the time, we have running water only for once every 10 days, and every couple of weeks. It depends on the area, by the way, because there is no fair distribution of water. And most of the time in summertime, believe me, I need to ask my kids to go up to see if we have enough water to have showers or to irrigate some trees that we have. So it's fully controlled by the State of Israel.
Thank you. We need to stop now, and I will not give the floor to the Israeli ambassador nor to the Palestinian ambassador, because this is not for another discussion or negotiation with Trump. Hello. You have to respect Swedish rules here.
All fingers are pointing to Israel.
Yes.
No saying, not for the first time, and this is a
Yes, you made your statement now, and we are not giving the floor to anybody else, neither to you nor to the Palestinian ambassador. This was for the public of Visby. We have heard the panel which we have chosen, and I think what we can take from this is that, irrespective of what we may think, it boils down to not speaking of occupation, anything, to basic human values: fair trade, equal rights for everybody. Thank you.